What is up, guys? It is a bright Saturday morning in Southern California, and today I'll be installing these Megan Racing coilovers on my 355i. I actually picked these up on Craigslist for about 500 bucks, and they are brand new. When I got them, they were still in the box, totally all wrapped up, and I'm just kind of taking some stuff out to kind of see what they got in here to look around. These are definitely more of a budget-friendly coilover option. I think they're around new. They're about 1,000 bucks. So I had to pick this deal up. I mean, I couldn't say no to this. Drove down to San Diego, went and picked it up. And a few months later, I'll be installing it now. It's highly recommended you get an alignment after you install coilovers, so I will be doing that very soon after I install them. Probably right after, because I did buy some new tie rods and some chassis braces that I'll need to do an alignment for anyways, so I'll probably do all that and get the alignment at the same time. I'm not too worried about my tires, as you have some new tires right there. But so obviously some of the better coilovers out there are like the KW coilovers, which that's kind of the dream at some point. The more sort of budget-friendly are known to be, I'm not really going on the track, really. I'm just kind of doing some canyon carving and stuff like that. But the kind of known to be good for road cars is like BC Racing. And these, Megan Racing, are actually made in the exact same factory as the BC Racing ones, and they're very similar in terms of what the features they have. I think they have like 32-way dampening, something like that. And they look very similar to some of the BC Racing ones I've seen online. So would not be surprised if they're just rebranded BC. Either way, I got it for a great price. Shouldn't be too hard of an install, but I figure it's time to replace my aged suspension anyways in my 355i. It is the stock M Sport suspension, so I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the car right now, and we'll get some shots of what the ride is like the stock. I think the best way of doing this is I'll bring the car in, I'll do one side of the car completely, and then once I know what I'm doing, I will do the other side for you guys, to get you guys kind of a clear idea of what's going on. Also, there are really not many videos on the Megan Racing coilovers in general, so hopefully this can help some of you guys out make a decision. Alright, multiple hours later, here we go. I got one side already done. As you can see, the droop height of the wheel is actually pretty high up in the wheel arch, so I've not seen how low it's going to be on the ground yet. But on both the front and the rear was not too bad to install at all. Just kind of needed some figuring out to do. The one kind of pain with kind of these Taiwanese made coilovers is that they do not have really very good instructions, and so you kind of have to improvise here and there. But I figured it out with the use of some forum posts of other coilovers, and just trying stuff out myself, and we got it good to go. So I'm going to show you guys the rear first, and then the fronts after. I think the front's a little bit easier, but yeah, rear first. Alright, so I'm doing all four in one day. However, if you can do the fronts in one day, the rears in another day, that's totally fine. You do have that option. However, I believe the rears do require a little bit more work and more like kind of customization in terms of how to install them. So I have my entire car in the air, but obviously that would be the first step, and then take the wheel off will be the next step. But I'm going to wait for the second to do that, as we will be working mostly in the trunk to begin with. The reason we are back here is because the actual strut, the rear shock mounts up and behind this carpet right here. So we'll have to take this carpeting out, and that's pretty easy. There are a few clips here and there, just interior trim clips. We got one over there, we got one over there, and there is one up here. But I would take this little panel off first. Our new coilovers actually have adjustable dampening. I want to say it's like 15-way for the rear, 32 for the front. So they have a little adapter that'll shoot off of the top of the strut. We can adjust it from there. But to get that, first we need to take the carpet off, so I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick. One more thing is we need to have your rear seats down just so the carpet can actually come out all the way. It will slide out from behind that kind of leather piece over there, so be aware of that. And also, you have to unclip this little clip right here for like luggage or whatever. It's a T40 Torx. Very lightly comes out, and just that little plastic bezel has to come out, and the entire carpet can kind of come out of the trim over here, and we can hold it out of the way. So with quite a lot of wiggling, you'll be able to get it off, and it'll kind of peel out of the way, like so. And that little dust cap right there, I'm going to peel off. Behind that is the strut mount itself. Alright, to remove the top mount of the strut, you will need a 6mm ratchet along with a 16mm wrench, basically a bend wrench. You can set on top of it, and then you can actually use the 6mm ratchet as if you were tightening something, loosening something, and you can actually remove the top mount by doing so. It's kind of hard to get a active video of me doing that, but you'll get the idea once you do it yourself. It's pretty straightforward, just kind of an awkward place. Quick correction actually is counterintuitive, so you will actually be like tightening. It'll be as if you're tightening that 6mm, but you're actually loosening it because it will loosen this top mount over here. So keep this as we need to use it for the new coilovers, or I'll do what I did and just buy some new ones. I bought these Monroe ones. It includes this top mount right here, which we'll need to take apart, and also the bottom mount, which is on the strut itself. I know for sure the ones on mine are pretty old and beaten up, especially the lower ones. They probably sit even more abused than the top ones do, so I definitely consider buying new ones, along with lower shock mounts. Unfortunately, I didn't buy those. I didn't think to buy them, so I'll have to be using my old ones, which do seem kind of worn out. So highly recommend buying some new lower strut mounts. I probably will want to do my lower control arm later on, so please keep that in mind. Alright, with the wheel off, we can see the shock right there and the spring right there. So we've already loosened the top of the shock. In fact, we've already taken off that mount completely. Now we have to take off the bottom bolt connecting the shock to the lower control arm over here. It is a 17mm bolt, just right here. I'm going to use my impact gun just to take it off real quick. And then we can simply push down the top of the shock and pull it out. Pretty easy. There should be one more rubber sleeve, kind of probably hiding up there. And it seems to be stuck to the actual body. There it is. Don't forget to pull this guy out. So like I was saying earlier, if you do not have a replacement, one of these mounts basically, you have to get a new one. Or you can reuse this, but I'm not going to do that because this is just old, and why to do that if I can just buy a new one for, I think it was like 20 bucks for both of them. So not too bad. I'm going to use the new ones. But yeah, the shock is out now. So for under 5,000 miles, this old shock really isn't that bad. Obviously you can press down pretty easily, which is not the case in the new ones. And they do extend back, but pretty slowly I would say. So definitely a good time to replace them, but not totally gone out like some maybe at this mileage. Kind of depends where you live, but here in Southern California, this car did mostly highway miles its entire life, so it's been doing pretty well. Alright, the next step we have here is to take the spring out. So to do this, we'll have to basically remove the lower control arm bolt that attaches to this hub over here. So just take it out. It may affect your alignment pretty badly, but it is recommended you get an alignment after you install coilovers anyways, so not a huge deal, I don't think. So we'll have to do that, take that bolt out, and then also we can loosen that one over there. So also lower control arm, but just loosen it. No need to fully remove it. Alrighty, so the lower control arm bolt is a 21mm over here, and then on the other side, a 21mm nut as well. So I'm going to be using a impact gun with a 21mm socket on there, and then a open-ended 21mm wrench to put on the other side to prevent it from spinning all the way. Then over there for that bolt right there was a 21mm nut on the outside, and then 19mm wrench on the other side. Like so, to be loosening that one, we will not be taking it off completely. We will be taking this one off completely though. Alright, so when loosening both, should be careful as this kind of will drop down. So if you'd like to, you can put a jack below here just to kind of support it, but I didn't do that. Didn't really feel like it was necessary. But the entire kind of arm just kind of falls down like this. You can pull the spring out at this point. It is a little heavier than you expect, so just kind of be cautious of that. There is a mount up top which we will be removing. Does not need to be there anymore. Here's what that looks like, and it slides over the spring, as you can kind of see, so it keeps it flat inside that little upper spring cup. And then down below here, also another mount, which pretty crusty. This would be a great time to kind of clean out the area if it's any debris in there, kind of rough stuff, and perhaps even take off debris from a burnout that may or may not have happened a little while ago. Yeah, we can clean this up, and then we can get the new spring all ready to go and set in place over there. A little tricky with positioning, but overall not too bad at all. You should have a jack ready to kind of place this and kind of lift up the lower control arm. Yeah. So here we go. We got the actual adjustable spring part that kind of goes on the very top. Then between that and the actual car is this little rubber piece, supposedly for noise, which makes sense, but gonna put that aside. Then in between that piece and the actual spring is this little kind of plastic spacer of some sort. Got the spring itself, and then on the very bottom is this rubber piece, which will make in contact with the lower control arm. So in this order, you basically get this flat spring. Now before installing, obviously you want to measure the gap between here and here on the spring itself as an adjustable ride height. I haven't touched it out of the box. I just made sure both are the same, and then I'm going to put them on the car and then see what goes on from there. Obviously, you know, you kind of want it to be at a good point to kind of start with, and we can obviously adjust later on, but that'll require taking the wheels off again in the future. Doing the same thing with the fronts. I'm actually kind of concerned that might be too low, but we will see. Alright, so to prepare the shock, let's get this kit opened up and I'll show you guys what to use as I drop some stuff on the ground because my desk is way too messy. So here we have this rubber mount, which is going to go in between the actual shock and the chassis from below. And then this requires no modification at all. We'll slide in the little metal sleeve that's actually already on the new shock. And then this top piece will sandwich in between the top bolt securing the shock in from the top. However, the thread's a little bit different on the new Megan Racing shock. Sorry about that, somehow I managed to fill up my SD card on my camera, so we're now on the iPhone. Anyways, we have to cut off this top portion, just with the X-Acto knife, something like that. Then we'll put the washer from the shock over there, and then the included nut on that instead. So we'll be doing that, really easy to do. Also, as the shock is pretty stiff, it is two-way adjustable, so put it on the softest setting before we can put it in the car, as to compress it to kind of get it into place. It is pretty difficult if it's on the stiffest setting. In fact, it's actually quite a lot harder than the stock or OEM shock when it's on its softest setting. So put it on a low setting, and to do that, basically you have to take off the top nut over here. We don't need this right now. Here's the washer I was talking about earlier. Right into the top, doing this with one hand here. And then you can screw on the little bottom silver piece. And then if you hold the actual shock, you can twist this. And I have confirmed it does 32 ways from 1 through 32. And to put it on the softest setting, I believe we just twist it all the way to the left. Alright, so once it is all the way on the softest setting, we can go ahead and take that top piece off along with this top washer. And then we can also take out this cylindrical piece, as that will be where our middle mount goes through. Alright, so now I've got the middle mount installed, and now the shock is actually ready to go on the car itself. Just remember to take off the bottom nut before we do that. I believe these are both 19 millimeters, the top and the bottom. And of course, when this does go through, we'll be putting the top washer above the mount we just cut up over there. Alrighty, to install the new shock, all we have to do now is, first of all, let's get the bottom in position first in the shock mount. Now, I think I told you guys this already, but I highly recommend replacing the lower shock mount, as mine was pretty worn out. But no worries. Also, trying to get the entire shock in below the fender, and you don't want to scratch anything. It is kind of tricky just to line it up, but looks like we're in. Yep. Okay. Now we have to kind of push down on the top of it to get it below the actual place where it can go in. This can be a little bit tricky to do. Just try your best. I recommend standing up and kind of pressing down with both hands, kind of on this washer area. And we just kind of make sure that this kind of lines up and it's going to go in. So we should probably start off the bolt at the bottom. That kind of will hold it in place. Then we can jack up slowly the entire this entire hub, and we can kind of have more access from the top, from inside the trunk, to tighten up the bolt up there. Quick correction on my part, the bottom is actually a 17 millimeter, just like the OEM shock, and the top is the 19. Alright, so at this point I have loosely tightened up, I've kind of hand tightened the 17 millimeter at the bottom of the strut, and I've jacked up the entire assembly so that the top portion of the strut can fully go into the car itself. Now we can start tightening this 19 millimeter and get the bushing in place. It is kind of an annoying process to kind of get that bushing, or kind of get the this entire thing pretty tight, and I'll be sure to walk you through the process. Alrighty, so the order of putting this in is you put the bushing in first, with the side you cut facing upwards. Then you got to put that little wash that came with the coilover with the round side facing upward. It's kind of a chamfered edge, so the rounder side will face the upside. And then you can go ahead and screw on that 19mm bolt. Now, to properly do this, you will need to get a 19mm wrench, kind of similar to how we took it off, but instead of a 6mm socket, you'll have to get a 5mm Allen key and tighten the exact same counterintuitive way. So it'll seem like you're loosening it, but you actually be tightening it. So we'll bottom that one out first, and then we can go ahead and bottom out the bottom 17mm. So as the dampening adjustment is kind of in an awkward place below the trunk carpet, Megan makes this little adapter that'll go over the, with some set screws, it'll go over this piece right here, and we can actually feed this guy out of that little port, and you can make a hole in the trunk liner if you'd like to. I probably won't. I'll probably just make it so I can access it by kind of pulling back the trunk liner a little bit easier, as I don't plan on adjusting this, that often. However, we can do that if we want to. So to do that, there comes with some little set screws and a little plastic bag. Basically, just put this piece on top like so, and then there's a small hole for the set screws right there, the bottom one. The top one's already full, so just the bottom we'll be using. Already got the carpeting back in place, and as you can see, I've got the little extension to kind of hang out over here. Now I'm going to make a hole over here and I'll kind of pass it through the little grommet right there instead. But for now, this will do. I'm going to leave it at the softest setting for now. I probably will adjust it later. I have to do the same thing on that side, as currently that little extender is hiding behind that panel, so I'll do that later. That's not really a priority right now. I did have to leave this cap off to accommodate for that, but that should be not a big deal. That was just basically for sound, I think. You got to tighten up the bolts to be loosened, so got to put load in the suspension, meaning jack up this control arm, just the two lower control arm bolts and nuts respectively. So remember, you got to get the car kind of off the ground slightly from that jack point right there, and then you can go ahead and tighten everything up. All right, at the fronts now. The first thing we have to do is take off the top part of the sway bar end link, which attaches to the strut itself. It is a 15mm bolt. I'm going to impact it off, but if you need to, you can use a 15mm wrench and a wrench behind it, to hold the end of the link in place, and then take the entire link end off. The Megan Race kit does come with some adjustable end links, but I'll be using these instead, just for now, because they're still pretty new. So I figure if I find a need to get some adjustable ones or use the adjustable ones, I'll pop those in, but for now, the stock ones fit just fine on the other side, so I'm going to use those. Then we have to basically take off the knuckle over here, which if I remember correctly is an 18mm down here. And this guy right there, there is a bolt going through that, so 18mm wrench on one side, 18mm impact on the other side, and we can take those out completely, loosen up the where the control arm to the subframe, both of them, and then we can go ahead and take off the three 13mm nuts holding on the top end of the strut in place, and we can lower it out and go from there. Here's the 18mm nut and bolt, which we're securing that C-clamp, that kind of where the the strut goes in that little spindle over there. So that only loosens up or releases the C-clamp. However, to actually let the shock out of the C-clamp, you need to get one of these tools. It's a Schwalben tool or ATE or whatever you can find, essentially. Right here, so that you don't damage the actual torque of the hub itself. You essentially put this in straight first and twist 90 degrees. That's basically enough room that allows you to get the shock or strut out of that little spindle itself. So it's a really great little tool, not too expensive, pretty cheap actually. So highly recommend getting one of these, probably at your auto parts store or on Amazon if not. And I'll link to one. I got this from FCP Euro, so they had it there, obviously. But it will not damage your clamp, makes it much easier to job. And yeah, so currently I'm taking off 13mm up here that support the actual strut to the frame of the car up top. Now you can see I have the Megan Race strut bar, so to take this off as well. We will not be reusing these OEM 15mm as the coilovers do have a different thread and pitch, so they come with their own 13mm nuts, so we'll take those off. Now, upon removing the last one, keep in mind this will drop. There's nothing holding it in place really, so you kind of want to guide it out carefully, and you have to rotate the top of the current strut out to properly get it out of there without scratching the paint. or wrap in my case. So if you'd like to, if you feel more comfortable, go ahead and tape this up and make sure no damage occurs over there. Here at the start of the car, all you gotta do is stick that tool in that little clamp, open it up, and then we can slide this guy out of here. There is some strain on some wires down here, so just be aware of that. If you can remove them, probably better off doing that, but I have not done that, so we're just gonna work with what we got over here. There's the tool in place. You can kind of tell. Now if I kind of pull on this with both hands, kind of wiggle it out, it'll all come out as it should. All right, so here we got the new coilover suspension from Megan Racing. What we have to do before we put this in the car is first of all take these little guys nuts off, and then this little metal pin right here will basically align with the kind of middle of the C-clamp where it's actually an open space, just like on the stock one. There are actually two little pins right there. So same kind of idea. It'll slide right in there. Use your jack to really help you out. Get this guy up top. The three little studs will slide through the spots up in the shock tower over here, and you kind of want it to look like this. So these do have camber plates built in, which is a pretty nice feature. Kind of max the camber on this side just for fun to see what it would look like. You want those to be, I guess, perpendicular to the actual car itself, just to make sure it can only kind of fit in one way, but you can rotate the top hat independently of the bottom part, so nothing to worry about there. As you can see on that side, to remove this E-Torx, it's an E12, something like that, or E14, I can't quite remember. But I did remove that. I loosened those as well, so I'll have to tighten all those again at the end. It is quite a lot smaller, so obviously different spring rates and all, yeah, it's actually kind of funny. This is actually quite a bit heavier. Not quite a bit, I'd say a little bit heavier than that is. At least it feels that way, but it's a much smaller packaging, so yeah. All right, as you can see, the jack is holding up all the way right now. Currently, there's nothing on the studs, obviously. So I'm gonna get the strut brace mount, put that on top as it was before, and then put the new 13mm nuts on top, and we can tighten that up, and then put that 18mm back in place, retighten all the control arms and all that kind of stuff, get the servo link back on, and then that's essentially it. Obviously reroute all the cables and all that, and all the mounts and such that we took apart. Quick correction, for some reason the new ones are actually 12s and not 13s, so I should remember that. The only thing to do after that will be to adjust the camera to match that side, so obviously I maxed out the negative camera in the front, which made a mistake, we'll see, but obviously I'm going to adjust this a little bit later as well, so should be cool. After this point my phone basically died, but so I had two cameras down, but essentially all I had to do was turn everything back up as it should be before. I used the stock front sway bar link, so the supplied one from Megan Racing, but you can use either one you want, really. They're pretty much the same purpose. I don't really see a huge difference there. And once I finished installing everything back again, I put the car back on the ground, and I drove the car around for a couple days before I even aligned it, because I wanted to make sure everything was still tight. So I think it's a good idea after installing some coilovers or any new suspension work, is just to make sure everything still stays tight after you drive the car around for a little bit. One thing to mention is that before you get your alignment, you're also going to want to dial in your ride height. So in my case, I actually wait for my new wheels to get here. I installed those first, and then I got my alignment afterwards. And now the car is basically perfect fitment, I think. I have absolutely no issues with rubbing, which is great. I have my fender shaved a while back, which you may want to do as well, just to make sure you have maximum clearance. Other than that, so far I'm pretty happy with these coilovers. It's been a few months. I don't know why I hadn't done this video earlier. It's been literally like since June since I made this video, so it's only getting uploaded now for some reason. But it's here now, and let me know if you guys have any questions in the comments below. I'm very happy with these for the price especially. And yeah, I do plan on uploading a new video soon about how these coilovers have been treating me so far.